Welcome to another tech video. We're going to be upgrading our OBS Studio PC today, or over the next couple of days. We currently run OBS Studio for our top-down views on a Dell micro form factor Core i5 PC. It's nowhere near powerful enough. CPU ramps right up. The graphics are pretty poor. So we're going to be replacing it with a new build machine. So this is a pile of the new parts. So we've gone for a Core i5 11th Gen 11600K CPU, and we've gone for a WD Black NVMe 500 gig drive. So this is PCIe 4, and we've gone for a PCIe 4 motherboard, which is the ultra durable B560 MDH3. So they're the new bits, and then from the old system we've gone and removed our Corsair RM850 power supply. So that's a modular power supply. You can see we've got all the cables and bits and pieces here. We've taken our old CPU cooler. We're going to be reusing that. We do have a 240mm Corsair H110, but we're not going to be using that because we want to use as many parts out of the old system as we can. The next for the old parts are this really nice Gigabyte GTX 1080 Ti, and then we've got some DDR4. We've got 16 gig kit DDR4 memory there. We've got a case fan, and that is our mounting plate for the cooler. We do have a 1TB Crucial SSD drive as well, so we may fit that, but this one that we got here is 500 gig, and it will be more than adequate in the build that we're doing. So that's all the parts. Let's have another quick look. I'm not sure how that cooler is going to fit in, but I'm sure we'll manage it. That's a big power supply as well, so we'll need to do some space saving work with the case. But that's it, so let's now get started. So this is a dual channel kit, so that is just going to slot in hopefully the right way around. Like that. Okay, so that's the memory and CPU installed. Now we're going to get the back plate on for the CPU. So we've got 4 mounting points that the cooler will screw down onto, and then on the back side we've got our plate mounted there. Now we want to add the NVMe drive. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so this comes with a heatsink on it already, which is fantastic. Looks like we've got a little LED light on there as well. So we're going to mount this in slot 1, and it's already got our standoff in there in the correct position, so we don't want to mess around with that. We're just going to add the drive like that. So that's our 500 gig drive mounted. Okay, next thing that we're going to do is, that's the motherboard completed. So what I'm going to do now is I need to have a look to make sure that the power supply isn't too big for the case. Right, so we've now got finally we've got the power supply in. I didn't think it was going to go in first of all, because of there's a stupid bracket. Let's have a look. And actually the power supply sits back about 1.5 inches because of the mounting bracket there, which is fine, and just took me a little while to to work it out. But the power supply is now in, the standoffs are in. So what we can do is I want to start routing some of the cables. So we need some of the cables to go through the back and round up here. So for the CPU connector, alright, I think we're ready to get the motherboard in now. So we're going to take our IO shield, pop that in. Okay, that is it. Board is now in. Get the screws all done up. Okay, and then we're going to plug in our CPU 8-pin connector, because we're not going to be able to do that later on. And our 24-pin connector going round here. Okay, so we've got our USB front 3.2 connectors, so that needs to go in. And then our front HD audio. Right, so we're getting there now. So we've got all of the front panel connectors in down there. So front panel connectors in, USB 3, power there and there, front panel audio, we've got no USB 2 ports, so nothing connecting in there at the moment, but we will be using that for the pump and cooler, which is the next thing that we're going to do. So we're going to mount that on the back panel, or hopefully going to mount that on the back panel if all goes well. And then we pretty much just need to get the graphics card in, and then we're done. Right, so we're now ready to get the pump installed. Okay, so that's our radiator mounted, and we've got some wiggle room there. It's going to be really tight underneath. In fact, it's so tight under there that we're going to have to take the radiator. So, the correct way of mounting this will be to mount the pump first. Like that. There we go. Right. So now, just tighten them down. Right. That is that sorted out. Okay, we'll sort them cables out in a minute. And the next thing we're going to do is to get our radiator back installed. First screw in very loosely, and then, as I mentioned, what you want to do is make sure that the top of the radiator is higher than the top of the pump. So we're going to mount it as high as we can go. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got our cable management to deal with, but we can do that afterwards. Next thing we want to do is to add the graphics card. So USB 3 header. We want to make sure that this can go into the top slot. Which it does just. Okay, so that's the graphics card in. Okay, so that's it all pretty much put together now. So we've got our power for the graphics card. The graphics card's installed. Everything seems to be in order, and we've got all of our modular power connected. So let's now have a look at the back side and see what we've done in terms of cable management. So not too much to do, to be honest. I'm happy that that runs across there. This is not quite long enough to tuck right down into the case. We've got our fan cables down here, all cable tied together, and our run down the bottom. So that's it in terms of the build. That's now complete, so let's see if it works now. Hopefully it will. Okay, always a nervous time. So let's have a look and see if we can get a post and a boot. Yay! Okay, super. So that worked. That's worked first time, which is great. Right, so M.2, NVMe 4x4, DRAM status, XMP enabled, boot manager. Okay, so CPU fan, which is correct, so that is all working. Excellent. Don't need smart fan. Okay. PCIe is Gen 3. No SATA drives connected. That is it. So now what we can do is we can get a working copy of Windows on there. So once we've done that, we're going to get the case back together and then we'll have a look at it. So let's just go down and have a look here. In there. Right, that was a bit of a stressful build, but it is now completed. Okay, so let's have a look at the system now we've got everything up and running. So we've got all the drivers installed, we've got all the Windows updates done. We've used a 280mm radiator, so you saw us fit a 120mm radiator with fans. However, that when we fired it up for the first time, the fan was just running pretty much flat out most of the time. So we checked it, we had a look at it, we re-added some more thermal paste. That didn't make any difference, and then when we took it out, you can actually hear a lot of sloshing around in there, so there's a lot of air in there. So we've removed that and we've replaced it with a 280mm a Radiator, and it's a Corsair H110i, and that has cured all of the problems. So under stress and under load, as you can see here, we were running at 62 degrees was the hottest temperature, but we're sort of ticking over around about 30 degrees, and which is superb. You can hardly hear the system at all now, which is great. The system takes very little time to boot up. It's booted up from switching on the power supply all the way through to getting into the desktop is no more than about 8 seconds. So yeah, we're really pleased with the system, and it means that yeah, we're going to be using it for a lot more stuff apart from OBS Studio, and we're going to be using it for running a web server as well for our development work. So that's all there is to it. If you found that video useful, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Just want to say thank you for your continued support, and we will see you in the next one.